Okay, so let's find our hip edge at the, we're going to sit on top of the base of your bolster. So you have it set up on top of a rolled blanket. You have a block behind you. Okay, so this is, this class really title is Simplify. So my hope is to be very balancing with the instructions, but to bring some inspiration to the breathing in the beginning. So as you start to recline, you want to have your sand in your lap. Whatever weight you have, add it into your lap. Kind of feel where you're sitting. If you're on a block, if you've chosen that as your base, or the very edge of your bolster. And then when you start to recline, step your feet out, almost stamp them out. So you got kind of this widening angle of security in the underbelly of your legs. And then when that underbelly kind of drops down, when you lie back, this underbelly is no longer as heavy, right? Your pelvis starts to move back your spine. And so I'm going to encourage you to, to start to move your sand up into your belly. And then as you lower back onto your block, to be rather encouraging for your neck, to feel where it's almost simply aligned, not trying to stretch your neck deeper. So the options are to have the block at a mid-height or a low height, but finding the pattern where you're not flexing at your neck, so your chin does not push into your chest at all. But you almost feel as if your chest is flowing back into the throat, opening up the glandular pattern here, the thyroid, parathyroid. And then when you start to move into the fullness of this chest opener, we're going to try to straighten the legs. They can be wide, they can be in a hips line. And then move your sand down to the tops of them. Okay, reach to your belt. Find where your belt is, try to access that support. And then as you open the hands out on the belt, widen the grip. Feel as if the belt is almost like has a hard surface, like you would if you had you're holding onto a bar. So I want you to get a feel, how would you hold differently with your arm muscles if it was firm? So kind of imagine that, maybe create an opening with the hands, and then work on articulating the arms, simply reaching them back. And then spread the hands out a little wider on the belt or the pretend bar, and open the chest, and also relax your feet. Feel those opposite chains of reaction, our hands and our feet. Kind of as if your feet, your toes could, well, I don't know if they could hold a belt like your hands, but that would be a whole different way of teaching, huh? Stay tuned. But feeling your toes as if they had some curl abilities, and that the feeling of them is to move apart for once in this type of pose. So feel the ribs spreading open, the eyes relaxing from top to bottom, and the breath appealing to you with the influence, breathing in, filling the lungs, filling the belly, and then as you exhale, release, and simply continue that pace of breath, allowing your hands to relax their grip. And I would slide the belt so it's kind of off to your side, so it will be easy to get soon enough. So I slide it to the side yard, either side. And then feel when the arms are motioning to rest the backs of the hands on the floor. Feel the feet still rotated. In fact, if you like your rotation to be legs closer, you could access that wave and feel the differences. My emphasis here right now is that you are working towards moving the pelvis awareness into the back body, the rib awareness opening into the back body. So the frame of the body is simply opening the front spaces. Back spaces might feel, let your hands rest on the ground and open the chest. The back spaces might feel slightly contracted. So feel if you can press the shoulder blades back into the bolster as if the shoulder blades could actually push down. And don't be afraid of moving the ribs, but really moving the pec, the chest muscles, feeling their expansion. And then start to move your legs closer. If the closeness decision is to bend the knees, that's fine. But feel when they're very close, as if you have a uni leg. Okay, feel the block under your head so you have the opposite awareness of heels down, brain centered back, so the very center sensation of your head on your block. Since your brain in some units of thought is a limb, right? So that's a limb, we got legs as limbs, but the connection in the brain feeling is not likely to have the same feeling as a leg. So use this practice to kind of simplify that order of things internally. Okay, now feel the heels reach and then start to motion your arms so they move to the ceiling. It's pretty simple with the hands reaching together, interlacing, and then turn the palms towards the sky. Feel when the arms are in activation, as if the shoulder blades have now peeled, a tiny threads of the shoulder blades are peeling up. And now get long, let the arms reach back. Feel that everything's kind of motioning into the vine of the spine. So that might feel like your waist stretching. There's energy of lengthening. The spine doesn't always feel like it's part of this experience, but it's certainly putting energy into the center of the back. And breathing. Add that layer. Relax your grip with your hands. And now as your arms slide down to get the sand, I want you to slide your feet in towards your bolster. If you've got a block under your tush, this would be a good time to slide that out because we're going to slide down the bolster. Okay, so we get the block from behind us, we lift it and put it over to the side, and then we slide down the bolster and feel it first. This is the particular experience of the back on this fairly flat surface, right? We don't have a terraced blanket stack underneath our back, but I have my sand at my belly, okay? So I'm gonna step my feet out a little wider than hips distance, reach through my rib cage, and then take the sand away from my belly. And then as I start to come up, I want you to place your hands to the sides of the legs and see if you can lift up at heart as if the beacon of the heart is going towards the ceiling, and there's a lift in the throat as well. So articulate your hands around the sides of the legs, grip them or grip your pants, whatever you can grab a hold of there. Lift up at the heart without tightening through the neck. See if you can lift up, correlate in that, or coordinate your core, coordinate, and then come up to sitting. And then feel that awareness in the legs. So we're going to bring the feet together off the floor, hold the backs of the legs, and get the legs to move in close to your torso. Really feel the hinge of the hips, but less hip flexor pressure. So you're really sitting back to the tailbone at this point. Okay, so lower feet, knees out. Place your blanket extra on top of your bolster. So it should feel like the bolster is right snug up to the back of your pelvis now. And then as you bring your blocks in, essential to have your blocks under the thighs, not necessarily under the knee points, but feeling the support under thicker part of the leg. And then as I move my sand, I'm going to slide it towards my feet to start, but get a belt and buckle it up with these two options for Supta Baddha Konasana, okay? So it basically is a cobbler's pose on your back. So when I place the looped up belt around my waist, okay, I'm going to take the belt from the low back of the waist over my feet, okay? So that's the first simplification there, okay? It's simple. Before you go back, you put your sand on your feet and make sure your belt is very low at the very top of the buttocks. Door number 2, those that want to find a different specialty, right? You're going to take your belt that's looped up with your hands reaching, and then you're going to actually twist it, which seems to be a no-no and often lots of belt use, right? But you're going to twist this one purposely so it reinforces the channel of energy in the top of the foot, out to the leg, and then it does pull a little bit deeper to stretch the lower back. So if it feels okie dokie, I would take that one. And you might notice that if the buckle is far away from your hip, it will end up down the road, not in the present moment, but later. So we will prepare for a later moment by putting that buckle in easy hands reach. Doesn't have to be on your thigh, but it likely won't hurt. Okay. So sand either across feet. If you like to put sand across your ribs, you're welcome to do that as well if it works out. Place the blocks under legs. If you're already back in cobbler's pose, bring your arms overhead and reach to your elbows. Yeah, feel the elbows gripped with your hands and kind of suss out the movement of the ribs, like you're cranking a little side to side. Like this is a project. You're in personal project mode right now. So wriggling is good. Centering after wriggling is important. And once you center, if there's a little fidgeting necessary, that's okay, but I want you to try to align your focus into a reclining cobbler's pose. Notice the angle of the hips and center the legs on those blocks so they don't have to dig into the blocks, they could flow supported by the blocks. Try how it is right now, and when we switch arm crossings, you can always change the block. Brain resting on the blanket. Now change the crossing of the arms. If the arms are tingly, you feel it right up to the joint. If you can notice where the tingle is moving from, back off a little bit with the pressure, with the hands and the intensity. So we don't want to get into that, our arm went numb mode, but you want to make it therapeutic and supportive of your body's needs, quality posing and reposing sometimes. So feeling the awareness that lingers right now in the legs, supported. If it seems as if you could just be here without interruption, maybe minutes ahead, noticing how the pelvis is held if you have the weight of the pelvic floor sinking, or if you struggle with it a little bit. So if there's a bit of a dose of struggling, add your block height up. Right? If it's a little much, just noticing, if it's a little intense of pressure, tilt the blocks. Find where it's as if the pelvis is like a basin. And the belly is moving with the breath. Let go of the grip of your elbows and restore mode here. recover from moving your arms so much. Feel the right pathway for the shoulders to glide down through the hands. Feel how the belly is moving forward and downwards. Okay, now with a few moments here, can you center the mind upon the length of the breath and the exhalation 1 to 2 counts longer than the inhale. Opening up the front of the hips, the legs, circle the abdominal organs, the chest, the heart. Simple medicine, just very, very simple. And now as we move if there's sand on the ribs, you want to slide it off soon if you chose that experience. So there's not any weight training on the ribs per se. And then as you unbuckle the belts, start to slide the blocks at the same time as you move your knees to point up. They're somewhat synchronized. Okay, I slide my feet in, I scoop the blocks aside. Now if you have a ball, you're going to bring it to the left outer thigh, or you're going to use a block. So if you have various sizes of blocks, take a block that's the flattest one you got, okay? Another thing that works is little pillows for this as well. So I bring the right foot, and with my sand in front, I'll just kind of push it away, but when I move my right foot to the left knee, kind of notice the pressure in the front of the right thigh that occurs. So I want you to you might even put your hand on your belly to balance this act, but when you swing the right knee open, because you're trying to hook the foot to the left knee, feel that this right leg can basically swing out, it can bring itself to center. So there's motion from the pelvis, from the right buttock into the hip, right? So kind of feel that motion as you put your foot to your knee, and you could completely ignore all that thought too. But as you have your ball or block next to your left upper, outer hip, you're going to lean your weight into your ball and try to squish it. If it's a block, you probably can't really attack it like you could a ball, right? You can't force. The structure isn't responsive, the surface. But a ball is responsive, it's squishable. So it's squishable. So feel the body leaning, smushable. Hold the right knee with the left hand. It's got to be opposite as your right arm motions back. Yeah, if you get to the end of the experiencing of the arm behind you, it's not interesting, as interesting. So you might let this upper arm flow out to the side and then back up, and kind of work your shoulder. Hold the knee, and then let the right arm be wherever you want it to be, whether it's stretching behind you or resting, and try to pull with your left hand. Like you're pulling a lever and you're not sure how much is going to come out, right? Many of us know how to like move the faucet handle, how much is going to come out, but you want to notice how much energy and actually tension is wrung out of the glute on the right leg. Huh? It's kind of like that. So I've got to program this to be the right amount, not so much that my back grips. Okay, so I can pull the leg a little to the left, like I'm cranking it over. I can pull it a little towards me. But this is an important one, I think. It's a linking pose. It's not like, it's got like a Sanskrit name, you know. It's a linker. It's a linking pose, but it's important. Left hand on the floor. Feel the left foot push down and then help the right knee push out. Okay, now as you uncross, you have a choice right now. You can take the ball and put it under your right buttock that you're just stretching. And you want to put it so that when you sink into the ball, your actual form of your rear actually pushes into the ball. So high up on the buttock, the glute medius probably isn't going to be really helpful on this one. You want to put it on kind of the bulkier part of your rear. And then just massage the right buttock that you were just stretching side to side. Let the hips move like you're wagging your tail. And you could probably find a lot of different balls that you could use, that you use for like self-massage. Tennis ball would be okay for this one. Now, if you're going away to look for a tennis ball, we will be moving on to the next part soon. So stay tuned. All right, now come back to center and use that ball next to the right buttock, upper outer right thigh, like the block could be there as well. And then as you lift this time, we'll just kind of cross into it. And just notice when you don't spend a lot of energy analyzing, maybe it's a good time too, okay? Maybe it works the same way sometimes, organically. So I let my body weight lean into the ball, try to swoosh it. If you lean over into the object and it doesn't feel like it's part of you, like the object is not gripping you, come back up and then push the object closer in. See if that helps you. So we're going to hold on to the left knee. We're going to pull. Breathing. Feel the circulation somewhat in the buttock. It might feel different than the last side. So try to make sure your measurements with the object next to your hip is identical. So this might be one, if it feels a little different, you might move the ball a little bit lower. And it could just be that one side is more restricted than the other. The left arm can go straight back. It could flow open back. But let the body weight sink into that object on the right. Feel the hand pulling the knee. Give it a few more moments. Okay, now as we transfer into side sage, I want this to be as smooth as we can make this transition without too much struggle. So both legs, or actually we'll do that ball massage right before we get into it, but notice the leg orientation here. Left knee is open. It's going to be similar to when you roll into your left hip. It's going to be the same leg pattern. And the right hip has had a little bit of circulation into it right now. Okay, so let's add the left hip, uncross. If you have a ball, put it under your left buttock and massage only by right movement. So just sitting on the ball and trying to squish it is not going to give any massage motion, it might feel like a little bit of like a deep trigger point type of motion into my buttock, but movement is key, right? You've got to get a little bit of a stroke into that muscle, so weight and movement both. And you can't do one without the other, right? You need your body weight to sink and then feel that kind of roll. Now, when I move the ball aside, I'm going to roll to my left. Now try to stay kind of glued to your bolster a little bit here, even to the point where it's sort of like you pretend you're attached to it, especially at the rib cage before you unglue yourself. So roll, and then as I turn, I'm going to stretch my right thigh back and then come up and take my props to pivot to side sage. Okay, so I've got my sand set, I've got my ball on the inside of my right leg, or a block is perfect for this, or a blanket or nothing. If your knee doesn't needy knee, then you can go without anything. Okay, so add a couple blankets. If you are working with towels, you want to make the stack anything you're working with. So it's a little bit lower than the bolster. And it will be lowered even if it appears like it's similar. When I lean into it, the blanket's smushable, more than the bolster. Okay, so now it's your side. No longer is it your back that we're leaning into. So what I'd like you to bring some focus towards here is your rib flesh, moving out of the back of the pelvis, across, and the rim of the front of the thigh. Try to get a healthy dose of length there without trying to force it through the pelvis tucking. So instead of any tucking, you're working with length through the arm and the leg. Okay, the pelvis is important, right? You're moving most of the time from your pelvis, but in this restorative session, we can link up all the other sectors of the body nicely too. So the right arm goes over. You might need a block. You might get there and realize, well, a block would be nice under my hand. So add on props, add in a prop, and linger for the first few moments in recognizing the rustling through the ribs and the wideness and the thickness of them. Some of them are thick. The right leg could kick out a little bit. You could lengthen through the back muscles of the left glute. It might be uninteresting to you to do that as well. So the individuality here is important. So if we were surveying the group, everyone would have a slightly different perspective on this, I think. For the leg value, the crease of the knees, and the ability to let our body lie into the prop shape. So be sure your props are helping your contours of the body, the shapes. Rest the eyes. And realize the internal movement is from breath. Let the weight of your head relax, even if you have to kind of nestle your head into your blanket a little bit. Sometimes that's what helps the neck let go. Now feeling the most from your side compilation, right? The layers of motion into the moving hip. So even though we react by in our postural, kind of like the brain waves, focus on moving an extremity like an arm, a leg. That seems to be something our brain looks like it reacts first when you give an instruction. Even though I can't see you, I recognize when watching class, that's what people first kind of move from. So feel as if you could, this would be like you're going to need many practicing months of this one for restoration of how to move from your pelvis. Like, how can the mind focus there for movement? Maybe before you go all the way to the end of the ends of your body, right? Extremities. So we're working a little bit more in the centerpiece of the body. So when I come out of this one, give yourself some time to turn to your left, to maybe feel a little bit of this twist when you're in your hip, like you're turning down. You can take the ball out. Feel your hands on the floor on the other side. And let's take a few moments for cat-cow here. Feeling where you move from your pelvis and you move from your spine, kind of the chain of the spine. It's always fascinating to observe cat-cow. And especially if you're really trying to do it. So let the tops of your feet rest. Let your hips get a feeling of their natural arch, like you let your tail kind of hit back and up. And the sides of the muscles in the back are going to curl. So you're going to round your back, hands open, tops of the feet relaxing. And then inhale, arching through the back, but feel the load on the waist with the stretch. And feel when you articulate, we're simply doing cat-cow, alternating, rounding, and arching the spine. Breathing in when you are arching, and breathing out when you're rounding. You can also switch that. Breathe out when you're arching, and breathe in when you're rounding. So there's a reality argument for both of those being accurate. I would find what is natural for you, go with that, and then feel kind of the hardness of our arms on this pose. The arms can be pretty rigid. Okay, so hands on the blankets, forehead down to the bolster. If your knees are really tender, you might end up needing something under there for this set, right? Another towel, a blanket. So feel that reach through the back body. And then as you slide your hands under the bolster, you're going to turn to the front of your mat and sit on the bolster so that your right leg is forward, crossing of the left, okay? So consider this, this pattern. So you have your blankets back there. Well, let's just keep them there for now. But the right foot cross forward of the left, and then as we add our block perspectives, let's try to block under our right foot. And the ball could be under the left leg if you have an extra, or one of your blankets could go under that leg if it's necessary. If your left knee comes down, like so, and you can hold your foot towards your bolster, you can keep it that way. If it doesn't feel like there's a harsh pull around the knee, there's nothing that you feel that's tender, then go without the ball. It's always nice to have that cushion, even if it's not feeling tender. It's just protection. But as I put my sand now on my right thigh, I'm going to reach over to the top left corner of where my block is going to go there, on the top left corner of my space. So I want you to feel when you're reaching to that left side, I'm kind of tilted in a funny way in your screen so I can actually feel connected looking towards it. Now, if the right foot can turn itself to rest on the block, you'll feel this radiate in the leg. The whole leg might feel some circulation surplus here. So how far I move with this block to the left is going to affect lots of things in this position. So it's a simple cross-legged forward bend, setting off my focus to the left with my block. Okay, you can also have your block on a tie height in front of your right foot. It just might be a little bit intense. So work on promoting that circulation to your right inner thigh. Okay, give it a few more moments here. Flex the right foot. I know you're letting all the weight of the foot just put itself into that block. It probably won't make a dent in your block, but if you've got a cork block or a wood block, you probably need a little towel on top of that, huh? So we'll use our block between our hands. So whatever direction you're leaning to your block, see if you can take in the energy into the center body. So you might have to take some moments to establish coming up, sitting upright. And then as the arms move up into the hold of the block, bend your elbows back with your hands and move your elbows towards your head like you've got an element, okay? Really emphasize this. Now this comes from, a sister pose where you're holding your hands behind in Gomukhasana. Okay, so right now what we're doing is parts of that pattern with the arms. So it's even on both sides and it lifts into the ribs. Okay, so stretch the arms straight up, bend back, hands towards the block, pushing the block towards your upper back. Give it a few alternating patterns, but the arms only go up towards sky. They're not going all the way to the front of the space. So it's rather clipped in your tricep. It's a tricep clip, okay. Now when we start to move into our spinal twist, you want to use your arms to create the rotation with your torso, right? So I'm going to put the block behind me. I'm going to move my sand to my left thigh. And then I'm going to either take the left hand to the right knee and take my twist here simply. Or what you might end up doing is crossing, taking the ball away. If you're using that, crossing the right leg over the left, so the right foot is on the floor, knees trying to point up. And then you might take your, well, you already have a block behind you. You might take your right hand to that block when you're turning. It's really individual. The blanket might suffice for some of our arm lengths. It's rotational is different with the arm on the outside of the leg versus if you have your foot on the block and you twist, right? It's a little different. But I want you to have your sand on your left side. That's important here. For the leverage of the thigh into, or actually the pelvis down to the thigh. That's the traction. So if you can cross the leg, try, as long as your spine is not wilting. So if you have a wilting spine like this, and you can't seem to hydrate the back to lift up, try to water it a little here. Feel your left arm open and rotation spiraling up to the brain. It's like you're trying to get a whiff of something. You kind of lift up your face a little bit as the twist occurs. And feeling the rotation throughout the torso into the arm. Relax the pressure with that left arm. Like you're not going to give any more pushing and force. And you start to unwind and then take a counter twist. The right foot could be on the block, the right foot could be on the floor. You choose. Counter twist to your left hand back on blanket or block, and rotate torso, ribso, heartso. Okay, now with the weight on that left leg, we're going to use this for pigeon on the left hip. So notice this weight. It's starting to influence the hip joint. So when I come around, I'm going to move my block forward. And you'll want to have your blankets so that they are, take the sand off, it's already done its energy into the leg for right now. But you're going to want to have one blanket, okay? And then when you come around to pigeon, right leg back, left knee forward, position that blanket so it's, you know, it's stuffed into your bolster, it's close. You don't need to have a sandbag anywhere on you. But you might decide the perspective here with the top of the back thigh and the toes resting, the arch enhanced in the spine, and then I like to lower my elbows to the floor or the blanket or the blocks, one of the three. And then feel if you can use your arms in more of this Sphinx position with the elbows down under the shoulders. Feel where the breath kind of rivals in the belly and the ribs, and naturally arch the spine. And then all the way from the tailbone through the spine to the line. So you round back to that cat shape. And you arch the spine. And so feel how you can hydrate the tissues. This transfers your focus a little bit, right? It does distract you doing cat-cow and pigeon pose. So if keeping it pretty bland is better for you, that's fine. That might be a richer pose for you. Eventually steady on the hip. Yeah, be steady with the hip. It's your own left hip. Now balancing the motion of weight into your arms. Yeah, and in the observation and my coordination of my limbs can be a little bit stuttered on this one. So you might find, how would you get back to either all fours or down dog? Find what works gravitationally for you, not deciding one over the other as if one is better than the other, but feel the gravity of it. And then when you push back, you might slide your hands in under your shoulders. Everything's kind of like, you might do this, you might do that, okay? And then as you hook toes under, lift up your back thigh. Notice how things can get a little bit scattered on this. Stuttered is my word on it, but it's not necessarily exactly what I'm explaining. It's kind of the work of synchronicity. So when I push down and then I reach the left foot back, alternating bending the knees is a regular rhythm to get out of that pigeon direction. So feel when you alternate, pressing through the heels, and then spend a real decent amount of time on your calf energy. So you're going to lower down your left knee to the bolster, okay? And see if you can actually put weight into that knee right now. So it's like kind of nice around my hands. My wrists are like, okay, I can go with that. Now, the weight on your right hand is greater than your left. So the weight on the right hand is greater than the left because your left knee's down. So when I stretch back, I'm going to lift up my left knee and try to rock back to my right heel, stretching that calf. Head dangles. And then switch legs. So right knee down. Try to let that right knee actually push a little bit into the bolster. My left calf really can barely manage to reach back into the heel. One side's a slight difference than the other. So notice this before we get upside down and do legs up and stand and so forth. Kind of notice your calf stuff here. Okay? Now as you push and lift up your right knee off the bolster and stretch your left heel down. Okay? Now we're going to walk on back to our feet. Walk the hands back or the feet a little forward, one of the other directions. And then see if you can start to slide your feet up onto that blanket, toes up, heels down, off the blanket. And then reach your hands as far forward as they'll go. So maybe your hands rest on your bolster. Your spine travels down, inverting. Maybe you decide to hold your elbows closer to your legs. Traction. Ribs move with the breath. Head is releasing by the energy of the pulse of the feet down and the seat up. It's really basic sciences and all the circulation dynamics in longer held poses, restorative poses. So feel how you can restore here. Now if it gets you lightheaded, if your blood pressure descent is too fast for you, you might be better off, for instance, hands, knees, child's pose for this type of release in the neck. So we'll cover that next. Okay, so feel how you capture the breath. And give that a few more moments. Those of you that are still in that forward bend, you can feel the challenge of the inhale, getting that length, and in the exhalation, it's kind of easier when you're forward folding. That's why they're so calming to mind, right? Brain's calm this direction. Now when I walk on forward, I'm going to reach forward, I'm going to scoot my feet back, and then come down onto my knees. And then let's take it, so we'll turn the bolster forward. So we have this bolster vertical, and we're going to reach into a variation of upward facing dog. So I'm basically letting my core weight, maybe it's 60% of it onto the bolster. If I had to remove my hands, I would have a tough time with it. So I still rely on my hands. Now rely a little bit less. Bend your elbows. Okay, feel that tug of the elbows here. Okay, now if the leg energy got pretty passive, like you could feel your buttocks just kind of flow and they're not being monitored as well. Feel your hands open out, your hands a little wider to the sides of your sticky mat. So at minimum, your index finger and your thumb are on your sticky mat. So it's a little turn out of your hands. Elbows are back, waist is forwards. Now, as we pick up the heart and we come back to up dog, feel the energy in your buttocks and your legs. It's a little more tone. Breathe. Okay. And then as we come back to table, we're going to move our right arm forward and our left leg back. So alternating arm and leg. Change sides, left knee down and switch sides. So opposite arm, opposite leg. If you get a little tipsy on it, don't go faster, right? So get a feel of, if I go too slow, I can't balance as well. So monitor how your feet respond. We're going to get into some lunging pretty soon. So I want you to feel the opposite actions of the arm and leg that reach, especially through the back buttock muscles as you move the thigh back. Okay, last time, let's all meet with the left foot stepping up and out to the left side of your bolster. It's pivoting, a foot turning out. So the top of that right thigh stretches down. Your waist is lengthening into the thigh itself. Now a block could be useful besides your bolster. Yeah, it could be helpful to have that integration of the whole front line of the right thigh. Right, so if I have my hands onto my blocks, then my movement in the waist is transferring fairly high volume in the inner thigh. And there's certainly an appealing experience with this gecko pose, I have to admit, but I have to be careful, and I hope you are with the knee on the left leg. So if the knee is angling over the toes, it's too, you're stepped too close in with your foot. So you want to try to take a gamble and stretch the inner thigh, right? That stretch that, well, you have no choice. I don't think there's any options of that length, but feel the top of the back leg, feel the inner left leg. Okay, and with that arch of the spine, see if you can lift up your head, maybe lift up your gaze, because it's a relative standing pose. You are in a low lunge, but it's relatively connected to your front body, your limbs, upper body. Okay, now as you approach shifting sides, press into your hands, shift your hips back, let the left foot step back, and let's take a dog pose in between. So hands on the floor besides the bolster, fingers open wide, and then as you push the toes under and lift the knees up, stretch out through the backs of the legs into the heels, carve out some time to look at your knees, ensure that there's space between them. Something else you can do with this one is put a block or a ball between the lower thigh, right above the knees, and then when you push back, it's quite useful for the muscle, kind of the package of muscles on the inner line above the knee, the inside of the knee, the lower adductor. And as you put your feet a little bit wider, right, you get a little more stretch in the backs of the legs. So work with that object if you can. Not required at all, but it's something to kind of work with, especially when you walk your feet in and you try to squish the ball. You might lose it, but that's okay. Really bring some power to the legs. Lower down to the knees, and then we step the right foot to the top right corner. Blocks are tidy next to my bolster. Left thigh centers down. Now the toes could hook under on my back leg so my knee floats. Right, so if your knee doesn't like any amount of pressure, scoot your leg up on that bolster and let that knee kind of float a little bit. Yeah, a little bit of a flow through the thigh muscles. The top of the back foot is centered. You could lower your elbows to your blocks. You could articulate the ribs and gently look forward and maybe slightly up, feeling the line of the back. And take some care here for patterning how your clothes flow over your skin. That must have an effect on how I hold myself. Okay, flowing. Okay, now where that back thigh is ranging in motion, you're going to feel the arch in the spine. Feel where it's just under the radar of an ultra back bend. Right? It's under the radar of that. You can feel the accent in the back. You can certainly feel that accent in the low back. Okay, now big changes here. So we're going to shift our hips back, but keep the right foot out. Turn your bolster across your neck, pivot it so it's horizontal, and take the block on the outside of the foot and scoot the right foot in center. Lift up the back knee and then turn to your left with both feet turning towards that direction. Toes are, I would keep them in more the parallel zone than the pivoting in pattern, but turning them in slightly is certainly not overly cautious, but supportive of your
sitting bone and the back of the leg sensation, right? So that will support your angle of your knee as well. Okay, anything but turning the feet out is good on this one. So get a feel here. I want you to take your blocks farther forward so there's less pressure in the heel of your hands. And then as you're in a wide stance, I like to call this one drinking giraffe. You're going to let the arms go for that reach, and your head moves down. And if you touch your bolster with your forehead, great. If you don't, you're just as great. Okay, so get a feel for support under your head. You could add your blanket, this other blanket on top of your bolster to bring your head down. So there's support. That's the key. Linger here for a supportive wide angle. I want you to be careful of your arm volume. If it's starting to get tingly, then you're doing too far of a reach with the arms in the back. So feel where there's length through the back body, through the leg body. Now we're going to slide the blocks in. I want you to take your blocks so they're underneath your shoulders, hands comfortably shoulder width apart, okay? Turn to your right with the right arm up with the left inner thigh gradually stretched. So get a little feel of the left foot is turned parallel likely, okay? Change sides, spend very short amount, but feel the inner thigh pulls over and the left arm lift up. Okay, go one more each side. So take it slow, gradually. Notice how you link up your spine into the arm. Turning, last time, rotation through the inner thigh, through the waist, up. Great. Okay. Now when we come back down to center, bend your knees, scoot your feet in relatively close so that you feel some support in the hips. And you're going to walk your blocks with your hands to your right foot, turn the right foot forward. And then as you pulse yourself to pigeon on the right side, I want you to monitor the awareness in the upper back of this right thigh. So we're going to reach my left knee down first and not do a lot of lunging with this right leg. It's going to be minimal. Walk the right foot toe heel to the bolster on the left side and pivot the hip open. Okay, manage that right knee. It kind of spikes a little forward. You can kind of notice it pushes itself front and the top of the left thigh lengthens down into the left knee. And as you lower down on your blocks, if you choose to use blocks or maybe you want to bypass them and go to the floor, this is fine. Top of that back thigh lengthens. Yeah, feel the perception into your right thigh through the adductor, balancing around into the hip. So it feels like it's kind of juicing. Like there's some interaction internally as you're in stillness. Like it's not just a, kind of a bland, passive state. Internally, there's something going on with the weight of your body, your torso into your right leg. Right, you have that right side of the abdomen moving down. Farther to the floor, the more massage into the organs, but it's relative to what's comfortable for you. If it hurts, then that's not going to be restorative. Think of the practice as putting the body in kind of recover mode, patterns that are supportive and rejuvenating. Okay, so with your practice of motioning the weight into your right hip, So for this side, what we're gonna do is do our seated pattern before our side sage, because it synchronizes a little easier this way. Just a little bit more of the body choreographically moving this motion. So when I put my weight into my right seat, I'm gonna bring the hands down to help myself swing the left leg forward. Now I'll keep it this viewpoint this side. Maybe it's helpful to see the back line. So I'm gonna bring my block under my left foot. And now when I'm positioned up here, I'll put my block, I'm gonna be using that to the right top corner, okay? So you'll have your sand on the left upper attachment of the thigh into the pelvis. So you want to feel this really hugged up there. So this is nice and therapeutic, right, for the joint, just having that sand pack. It doesn't need to be some articulated, super bendy pose pattern. It could be a sand pack on my hip when I'm sitting cross-legged with a lot of balance under my seat, lifting me up, a ball under my knee, a block. I couldn't be held up more than this. So as I lean off of my seat and I lean to the right, I'm going to take my block and reach over to this left quadrant of my waist, the quadratus lumborum, right, this left side sheath. I want this space to kind of migrate its way down into the root of the thigh, but also use the motion of my arms to the right corner to about 1 or 2 o'clock to sense that into my, kind of the root of the joint. My torso gets a stretch. The back of the waistline. It's a lovely sensation through your back. You can make it all the more lovely by breathing well. And the ball, something between block and ball could be moved away from under your knee if it's not helpful anymore. You know, the block could stay to the right. You could take it forward in front of your left foot, but notice that's maybe extremes. So if extremes is not for you and it doesn't feel extreme and you can do that, that's fine. But we're working our way now into the twist. And this side, I think we're going to stay with the pure twist. Not adding a block overhead. So when I come up, I'm going to put the block behind me. Okay, transfer sand to right thigh, and then take the turn to your left with either your left foot on the block, or if you have a ball, you're going to take that out from under your knee and place your leg over. Yeah, so it's a nice hook for your basically for your levers, isn't it? So the levers on the bottom hook together. And then the right elbow can twist. Now, how else are you going to get your digestive tract and that circulation squish in your organs here? Besides twists, right? More than inversions likely is supportive, but inversions are soothing and toning to the organs. So they both have a large effect organ-wise. So if I turn, I sometimes feel the muscles respond, some rigidity. So if there's rigidity, go back to the foot on the block. And just feel if you're a little more supple in your torso. Yeah, this flexibility in torsos is affected by your back. If it's rigid, it's affected by your ribs flexibility. So how the ribs become flexible is through your breathing. Right? That's a big part of it. How much air you get into the lungs is about the movement of your ribs also. So explore the experience of inhaling and filling up and exhaling. Feel a little bit of that squeeze in the belly, but let the belly be soft the whole time. Let it just move with the breath, like it's a sponge. We have a few more moments. Counter twist at your leisure. So that's simply moving to the other side, same leg position. Turn right, right arm back, same leg pattern. If your foot is on the block, keep it there. Don't have to switch that if you don't like. But feel the chamber of the upper right side of your back, kind of move your shoulder back. Squeeze the blade in towards the spine, right blade back. And now since we're already turning right, we're going to slide the block. Actually, keep it back there. We can use it for sage pose. Huh? Slide your sandbag right thigh, okay? And then come out with that left foot stepping out and then slide down to the floor in front of your bolster. Add a ball on the inside of the left leg or block. And then stack your blankies. Push it just enough out behind you that you can lay your side and lengthen. Yeah, and notice this buildup of patterns that we did the twist, seated, and then we're doing the side rib stretch after. So it might feel complementary, okay, to the last pose. It's really individual, isn't it? And then the sands on that outer left thigh, outer left side, probably more than outer left thigh. So you feel where that is supportive of you. If you already got in the side shape and you don't have your sand ready, you can stay there. You're kind of free to feel where that zone roams for you, right? And lengthen with the upper arm. Feel the attempt to equalize the opposing reaches. It's a bit challenging with the arm. The compilation of muscles has a little bit more muscularization versus your leg right now, right? It's not like your leg is lunging, like your arm is in kind of a lunge reach as far as its expression. But feel if you can get some equilibrium with those two. Or how about this? Equilibrium. And so you feel the ribs, they kind of slow down. Hopefully your slow down can continue a bit. Now with the expansiveness of the side, we're going to turn into the right, down, turning and pivoting, slide the sand away. And then when you come up, take the blanket off, one blanket kind of out to the side beyond your range right now. You don't need to reach for that for a while. And you'll move your blanket farther back. And then you'll come up, don't go way too far. You'll come up onto your bolster. You can roll into it and then lie back, but let's have our blocks nearby. We don't know if we'll need them exactly, depends on time-wise, but I want you to have all your props nearby, okay? So we're gonna go into Viparita Karani right here. So we're not gonna wait till the end, but we're gonna go right into it. So I'm tilted forward on my bolster. You know, you can do Viparita Karani if you have a rectangular bolster, so not a round one, but flat. You could also do this with a block in front and then have a lot of this mid-sectional length. If you've ever done that at the wall where you have a block within the bolster, it would be the same thing. So if you're long-waisted, that works out nicely. If you're short, it's not going to be so helpful because then the bolster would be hit up at the back of my chest. So it's good to know that all our different lengths can be supported, okay? So our basic guess for this is I'm on my bolster. Okay, let's start with a block or a ball. Okay, so if you have a block,
place it between the knees. If you have a ball, place that. And then you want to lift up your levers, your leg levers. So you feel from the hinge, feel from the lift, don't wear them out. I think not moving is not a good option though on that idea, don't wear them out. Squeeze the object. I know the ball is really helpful for this, for the pelvic floor tone, but I want you to squeeze. I want you to keep the squeeze. So if it's a block, you already kind of got to your full squeeze pretty fast, huh? Make sure the blanket is only under your head, not your shoulders, okay? Now relax the grip, but keep the distancing. Make sure it's a spatial marker for your legs. And feel the arms so that they're open out to the sides. So you either have a ball or a block. Right, we're good with either. Now, as I start to hinge my knees, I'm going to go to the most mild hinge. So it's not hooking my feet down. It's slightly lifted, okay? It's lifted, elongated at the back of the legs. And then move the knees right. Move the knees left, move them side to side. Go gradually. You're actually moving your whole leg, not just your knees. Huh? And keep that transfer of energy in the back of the leg so you're getting a really good inversion. So we're doing maybe less poses now coming up to the end versus as many as we can collect, but really refining them. Really outlining them. So now your feet ought to be relaxed. If your knees are feeling response and there's pressure for some of us around the knee sides, don't go as far over, okay? Just let it be mild direction, directionally, even if you're directionally challenged. Okay. Now, as we add the sandbag, get a feel for the leg straight up again. Try to move them a little bit back as if you're reinforcing the hamstring awareness. Okay. Now, as I move the ball away and I soften at my knees, I want to bring my thighs to my ribs. So I'm in this curled up little ball here. Okay. So get your sand and balance the sand at the sole. So sometimes putting it across my shins. Now, some of us sandbag weight on our shins is not good on our knees. So you might put it across your belly to kind of balance it out, or your shins, and then grab the sides like you pinch the sides of your sandbag. It's just a sandbag so you can pinch it. It's not a cat. So when I put my feet to the sand, I try to curl it around the edges and then push it up. So I know if I'm going to be in it for a couple minutes and I have it pretty well established. Now if the front rim of the hips, if you have a second sandbag, you could also add that now to either here at the belly, as long as it's right above the bolster, not back from the bolster. You're kind of connected here. Okay, but you're going to keep it away from the rib cage is what I mean, not at the top of the ribs near the chest. Arms open to cactus. Find balance in your shoulders. Okay, so there ought to be some space, center of the leg, pelvic, basin, reversing that flow of gravity to the vital organs. So there is a downward pull on this, but it's not your daily postural downward pull in the organs, right? It's the opposite spectrum for the vital organs. So they actually are in more of a resting state, right? It rests the organs, restores the organs. It's pretty much simple that it just turns them into another direction of reality than they hang out in the daytime. So when the feet flex and the calf sensation maybe lightly builds for some of us. Feel a light hinge at the knees. Just be careful not to hyperextend. Feel a light softness. Now find that sweet spot where the legs go a little bit forward. They're at vertical. If you have a screen when you watch your class, sometimes you can have it so you can watch yourself in your posture. But the regular pattern here would be to look at the legs and notice they seem like they're moving away from you, like they're tilting, but usually that's vertical. So you'll feel the arch in the spine. It'll feel like it builds and strengthens the lumbars. Now start to carry the sand so it's over the belly button. Land there, and then soften the knees and feel when you lower down your knees and your thighs to your waist. Reach for your sand, carefully slide it off, and then we're going to go directly to the thighs, resting into the core, hands on bolster. Be cautiously optimistic on this one, like many things. When you're pushing your bolster, feel the touch of your back the whole time so it goes slow. You want to be patient with yourself. Remember, less poses, refine them, okay? Take the bolster, move it to the right, okay? Feet down and feel where the knees angle forward and press into the heels, like try to really put the heel plates into the floor and lift up the hips. So you're in a bridge pattern, right? It's called Setu Bandha, right? That's Sarangasana. So we are in this, there's a bandha to this, there's a hold to this. So feel where the heels press and let the arms be anywhere they want. Let the elbows bend, let the hands lower. It's interesting to observe this pose. I get that opportunity sometimes is to watch it. The blanket under the head isn't always helpful, but some people it is. So if it bothers you, slide it away. But really notice here the connection of the shoulders down to the floor, the lift of the hips, the front of the thigh rims lengthen. And then as you lower the spine, keep it really plain, just plain, nothing too special. You're going to lower your back. And then once you get to the tailbone, I want you to hover. Feel the glute muscles. Like if I hover a tiny bit, I have to activate my glutes. If I let my glutes go, right, I kind of lose my spine, the core of my spine, kind of my sleeve. So when I lower my spine carefully all the way to the back of the pelvis, to the sacral ledge, you're going to let the right leg lengthen. Let it just go straight down, flex the foot. Hand reaches to the bolster so it's next to your mat. And then feel when you cross the left leg over how you roll on the right buttock. And then when you merge onto that bolster, you can add your sand to the exterior left leg. You can add a ball to the sacrum. If it doesn't do anything for you, the ball or the block, don't worry, just take it away. You can add a blanket on top of your bolster if that's not high enough right now. But as you work on that leverage with the sand pressure, open the left arm and turn your head. Let your eyes rest. Now feel what movement with the props can adjust and support you. And after the last few effects of postures, you might even notice a difference with your breathing, your sinuses. Sometimes it changes, moving from that legs up, bridge pattern into a twist, that opens things up. Because those were holding poses, right? They were in one direction.
for a while, especially the legs up. Things can get kind of held up in the chest. Now, if that left shoulder is scooping under, think of it as kind of a scoop, right? That scoop, so it's rolling under. Arm could be anywhere it ends up, but the shoulder blade is the important part. Shoulder blades are important too. Especially if it feels like it's attached to your back and it literally is like a scoop. Right, there's like a little sliver of it that rolls back and in. Opening the chest. Now sliding the sand away, and we'll take the ball aside and windshield wiper the legs. So as you roll onto your back, you're going to have your feet wider than hips distance. So when you step your feet out that way, there's a tendency for the knees to move out, and then there's almost kind of a vulnerability to the shape, I think, no matter what, even if you're alone. There's a vulnerability to it, and with the low back. So I find if I have that natural arch in the back, it's key. Natural arch in the back is key. And so when I let my hips help me rotate, my knees are going to sway side to side. Feel your arms resting by your sides, not affected by your legs, but feel them in a calm state, even if they kind of hold your thigh when you lean into an arm. Okay, so we'll do one final twist in a moment. Anything that is maybe comes to your body memory that's helpful in between sides. It might be this, windshield wiper. It might be another bridge pose or knees to chest. So take that position, right? I'll do a blend of each of them. Bridge pose with my arms overhead, and then let my spine lengthen and hug the knees to the chest. Scoop them in. So feel this practice sort of as it's almost a language, right? It's body language and in articulating shapes. So now that I change sides, I'm going to stretch out my left leg. It might be a little challenge to get my bolster set over there if my left leg is straight. So maybe I stuff it back in, but I want to be kind to my lower back no matter what here. You could kick your bolster over too with your feet. You don't have to. Or your hands if they kick too. Okay, left leg down, right leg motions over. I know. You get to a place where in all likelihood the body just wants to like be sort of carefree and not have a care about where it goes. But feel where there's purpose in pose. So I've got my ball, and then I've got the sand to my exterior right. Okay? So in this final shape, see if you can receive circulation through the lower abdomen as well as it lifts up into the torso ledge, right? And that's kind of the open space into the upper belly. So feel the lower belly turn. It's a twist, just like when we did a seated twist. Your lower leg will help distribute that rotation. So you might try to straighten out the left leg a bit and feel when you move from the vine of the spine to turning your head right, opening, breathing slow.
Okay, now as we start to move gradually with our lower leg, our hip awareness, now we'll move the sand and the ball, and we'll suppose our way to come around to sitting. So I'm going to encourage you to bring your knees left, roll into your arm and help yourself up. Take a block set in front, okay? So I want you to utilize the blocks and 2 blankets above your bolster on this spinal one, okay? So you'll have your bolster up. It's only gonna have one direction. If you happen to have a round bolster, it works better on this one if you've got a round one, okay? So we're gonna make it a little rounded. We're gonna put our blanket on top, and let's flatten them actually, so you can do Supta Baddha if you want to. So when you come into your final shape, I want you to manage the weight distribution so the line of the spine is fully rested, right? So even the side flutter of the back is opening. So the sand could be under your sacrum, right? You could have sand under you on this one, or you could have sand over your shins, okay? So kind of notice the shapes, right? If I happen to use my sand underneath, I kind of rustle it a little bit. Sand wrestling. Okay. Then I have this inverted pattern flowing down into my occipital ridge here. Okay? If you find, no, I can't do this without something under my head, go get something, place it under your head. Maybe your belt. So I'm going to use the sand on underneath my tush, underneath my sacrum, but some like the sand on their body to calm them. Right? It's like a weight. It's a weighted blanket. So you be the decider for real. Feel the weight of your legs on the bolster. Feel the heels float. Yeah, and let the shoulders center back. If you have specs on, you're going to want to shed those off for certain here. And if you like to do some palming, you can place the hands and rub them so that you have some heat into the skin. And place the heat skin surface. Maybe circle the hands, wash them. Okay. Skin to eyelid, right? Rest the weight of your eyes into the lids and let the eyelids shutter down. Make a little impact of the resting of the brain. So as you in-breath, filter the air through nose. Exhale out of your mouth. Now feel as the hands find rest, if they're not already on the floor or on your belly. Soften the corners of the eyes and the nose. And then feeling the connectivity of your breathing in your face. And see if you can soften around. Simply places in the face that you can feel that grip when you breathe. Then start to move the breath closer to the belly. Feel that all the breath channel does, even if it moves into the nose as a filter, is that it's moving the belly as you in-breath and calming as you out-breath. And resting the mouth, muscles around the jaw, into the inner mouth, relaxing the tongue, the throat. Now, if the arms are layered on you, start to shift the arms to sides. Let the legs have a little bit of zest in them. You might move your feet, circle through the ankles, or maybe lift up the feet to the bolster and bring your knees out and your feet together. So feel how the possibility of direction and circulation is enhanced by these directions. Just like anything, if there's change, right, that inner environment, circulation shifts. So if you have the legs in a position of external rotation, sides of the hips actually kind of press around towards the upper buttocks and connect into the sacrum. So there's a nice kind of it's almost adhesive, but it's a quality of feeling centered in the hips. It's interesting, this posture. So notice when the knees position back up and then you're getting ready to come out of the shape, you might find what's balancing for you could be your feet on the blankets and then gently push, and maybe you have sand, so you slide it out and then you lower down and then guiding your hips over towards the side. I always recommend to go over to a side. You don't go over to time and time again, or the side you don't get out of bed from. Whatever the philosophy is on one side, it's okay to change it up. So roll to where you want, and then come on up. Take a seat, give a moment. If you can sit in Virasana, fine. If you want to sit on a blanket cross-legged, so you're seated either on your heels or on your blanket with your tush down, and then feel where the arms are in motion together at the hands. So pattern the fingers so that you're sealing the corners of your hands together with the thumbs touching down to the pace of the feeling of the heart. So feel the pace of breath. If you can let the throat rest. Bowing into the heart center. Feeling your heart center and the connectivity of all of us in our homes. Arriving in balance. Inhale together. And with an exhalation, bowing into the place in the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Okay.